phone. Would you do that real quick so he doesn't have to look for a link while he's in the middle of craziness?
Yeah, for sure.
Here's a message of importance to millions of people who are continually pale and washed out, weak and run down. Doctors will tell you that these conditions are often caused by a deficiency of iron. The iron you need to keep you physically fit and mentally alert. Medical studies show that 2 out of 3 women and many, many men lack the daily iron your body requires in a form your body can easily use and put to work. Every dose gives you more than your daily minimum iron requirement.
We are awake, we are not alone. We are striving for more.
So if you're not getting the iron your body needs, if you feel weak, run down, and are easily upset, start taking iron today.
It's Friday, my dudes.
And TGIF to you all. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Have No Sphere right here on the Iron Realm Media YouTube channel. My name is Josh Corey, and we have got a really exciting show for you, though it may be a little old school. So let's just try this, see what happens. Let's say hello to Mr. Walter Johnson. He's got a little channel here on YouTube called Flat Earth Head. Walter, happy Friday, sir. How you doing?
Happy Friday, Josh. Happy Friday, everybody in the chat. I'm trying to type to them. Yes, Liz, Walt, and the kitties, as you see. Mr. Man is extra needy today, so he keeps jumping up on me, but that's fine. I'll deal with it. You guys will enjoy the show, I'm sure. Yes, it is Friday. We had a great show this morning. It is a big, big day. If you're not aware, our buddy Zach is kind of in and out, hit and miss, because he's in the midst of Flattoberfest. Kicking off, well, I think about 30, 45 minutes ago there at the sign. He sent us the picture in the street, and I don't even know what it is now. So if you're not at the sign, that's where you should be there in the great Flattoberfest region. But yeah, he definitely is going to hopefully pop in here in a few minutes. He said he would try to from the sign, just kind of give us a little heads up and a hey and talk to who he can. And then the event will take over, and we probably won't see much of Zach. Real quick, am I the only one hearing another conversation behind us?
No. John, if you could probably turn that audio down just a little bit. I think your microphone is picking up your speakers as well.
How's that?
I think that's going to be much, much better. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, now that we've got him in, let me shut up and let's say hello to our guest.
Lucas,
thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me.
No, John, thank you. This is an absolute pleasure. It was really an honor. It's sometimes a struggle for me to get the initiative to reach out to folks to have on. So when someone knows us well enough to be able to say, maybe I should reach out, and maybe I should reach out to Iron Realm Media, it really did mean a lot. So I really do appreciate you hitting me up there on Facebook.
No worries at all. Awesome. I'm surprised to hear you turn that around. I feel like I'm the lucky guy, but hey, yeah, happy to be here.
Well, good. Let's dive right in. You wrote a book. which I think should be one of those that we need to. I've said before that we should start a little library campaign where we're requesting flat earth books to all the public libraries in our areas. But this is definitely one that should be there, one that should be in children's schools. I think being able to teach kids that possibly the people telling them this information might not have all the facts right, that despite their confidence in what they say, they might still have some stuff wrong. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book and then about yourself, because your biography.
So, I don't know when it was.
No, John, if you don't mind, I read your bio that you sent us this morning on the air for our first show on TFR. I'm not going to reread that. I'd rather hear it directly from you, man. Tell everybody basically kind of what brought you to finding what you found. Sorry, I didn't.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Long story short, I was finishing up college with a degree in biology. I got into the right grad school. Everything was all set up right. Red carpet rolled out, and then I got exposed to how my plan was to become a scientist, a medical research scientist. And I saw how the money side of the science business works, and I was really disenchanted. So I said no to the grad school, went into the Navy. And that's where I spent most of my career for the first several years. Navy, on ships, eventually moved into different fields so I could stay home a little more. But yeah, it was probably, I don't know, I was late 30s. I'm mid 40s now. So we're talking, what is that, 7 years ago? I encountered some information. Some people were talking about the earth being flat. And of course, I reacted the way everyone does. So that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And some people in my family were actually open to it. I was like, this is crazy. I'm like the man in my household. I got to save my family from this crazy nonsense. So I started studying it, and I found those little 5 reasons why everybody is wrong who doesn't believe that we live on an earth that spins around. And read a few of those articles. Those are intended to reinforce your beliefs, and when you already believe it and your mind isn't open, it does. But eventually, I think it was Rob Skiba or somebody had posted something about the gyroscope, and having been in the Navy on the bridge of a ship and done a lot of navigation and knowing how gyroscope-driven navigational instruments work, that cracked it for me. That cracked the belief. I was like, there's no way a gyroscope behaves the way it does if we're moving. So I had a lot of physics in college. Despite having a degree in biology, they make you take a year of physics. I took a little more. And I know there's no way both Isaac Newton and Copernicus are right. One of them is wrong. Maybe both, but definitely one of them. No way. So what happened is my belief structure got cracked, and that little crack, it opens your mind to other possibilities. So I went down the road, and probably a year later, I finally capitulated and said, you know what, this is correct. This has got to be correct. I don't know all the details. There's different maps out there. Maybe they're right. They're probably all off by a little bit. But the general concept, the general principle has got to be right. So for me, it was a gyroscope. So the book, right? I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. The Bible didn't sell me on flat earth because I had all these ways of explaining away the text that indicate that. But it was the physical realities and observations in our world that sold me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if anyone's written a book that's got all these little simple observations in it. A short little book that is easy for, you don't need to have a PhD. You need to have maybe finish the 8th grade to be able to understand the arguments in there and to be able to reproduce them yourself. Where's my short little list of easy to do experiments and observations? And the book didn't exist. Nobody had written it. I was like, this is really odd that it's this easy and there's this many things that you can do with almost no money, and high school geometry skills are as far as you need to go. So I didn't like that. I think there was a handful of really technical books where to check the work in those books, you'd have to have a lot of time and a lot of money to fly around the world and take different observations. And, I don't have time to fly and check out the Bedford level and all that stuff. So I wrote the book and I put it out there just because there was a need for it. There just needed to be something out there that someone could take and check for themselves. There's no bibliography because the sources don't matter. I considered writing it anonymously because it doesn't matter who wrote it. I wanted every observation in there to be independently verifiable by whoever wanted to take the time to read it and go through it. So yeah, it's a short book. I stand by every conclusion in it to this day.
You even included a link to
the gist of it.
AutoCAD in your book, sir. That was very convenient. If someone wanted to go ahead and dig into the AutoCAD and learn it and verify all the stuff, you definitely included a link there. I saw it not too long ago.
Yeah, I mentioned the gyroscope. I bought a gyroscope just to see for myself. I'd done it many times in the Navy with gyroscope-driven navigational instruments, and it's inescapable. There's no method in there for correcting for the Earth's motion. There's nothing in there that corrects for anything. So I bought one just to see for myself, and I set it up. The axis perpendicular to the Earth's axis and perpendicular to the direction of the sun across the sky. I had a beam of light going across it, casting a shadow on a piece of paper, mark the piece of paper, spin up the gyroscope. 20 minutes later, it should have moved 5 degrees. It didn't. You repeat it, it still doesn't move. Repeat it, it still doesn't move. The gyro-driven navigational instruments, they wouldn't even function if we were moving around or moving over a curved surface. It just wouldn't work. So, yeah, for me, that's what cracked the code. And different people takes different things, but yeah, that's something anybody can do themselves. So yeah, that's the gist of it right there.
Well, in a minute, we're going to dig into some details that you definitely cover there in the book. A lot of it is stuff we've looked at, here in the community. I just like definitely the way you present these things, kind of starting the book out with why, what's the bias on all this stuff. That being said, man, can you give us half a second? It looks like Zach's popped in, trying to give everybody a little
yeah, of course.
There at Flaktoberfest. I'm not sure if he's hearing us. He's currently muted up. He may not know that.
Yeah.
But definitely it's good to see all the faces. Hey, I know that guy. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get Zach's.
I saw Ted Summer over there.
Yeah.
There's David Weiss. There's all sorts of people I can see.
To unmute is all I can do. I thought I could.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's up, Zach? What's up, brother?
What's up, Mark? Give Mark a big squeeze for us, too.
Yes, what's
Give me
up,
1 minute.
man?
I'm going to say
Good
hi to
see you,
everybody
man.
on Ironworks. Yeah, I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I had to give some more hugs.
That's good. That's all good, friend.
You guys, I wish you were here.
Yes,
Same.
we do too. We do too, my friend.
I'd like to start off by apologizing to the guest. Man, I wanted to be here for this so bad.
No worries.
I really did. I'll definitely be listening to the show, but I'd love for you to come back on when me and Lucas could be here too. Maybe again, but
I'm all for it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. It's starting to fill up. On Dave's app, I think there's 90-something people in town so far.
Nice.
And then whoever doesn't have the app. And yeah, it should be getting even crazier tomorrow.
That is so exciting. I'm so pumped for you.
Yeah, I wish you guys were here.
I can feel the energy through the phone, dude.
Yep.
It's amazing already.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, lots of hugs from me for sure for anybody that wants one.
Yeah, I'll be giving them from everybody.
And tell
to
everyone
everybody.
that we are definitely there in heart, soul, and spirit.
Well, all right, guys. I saw you guys were on. I wanted to jump in and say hi and apologize to the guests. Again, I'm sorry, man.
No worries, man. Do not apologize.
Yeah, this has been planned for a while. Otherwise,
It's my.
But, yep.
Just cancel it. Tell Karen, never mind.
We'll do it next week, Karen. We'll tell everybody to come back next week.
It'd be fine. It'd be
Love you
fine.
guys. Thank you so much.
Everybody there in chat, love y'all. Miss you guys.
And make sure you give extra squeezes for Walt and I, because we can't be there to do it.
All right. I'm being summoned to go partake in
Go
some
partake, my
extracurricular
friend. You
activities.
go extracurricular.
Well,
So I'm going to go extracurricular. I
All
love you
right.
guys.
Love you, friend.
talk to you guys
Love
tomorrow.
everybody there. Y'all have a blast.
Yeah, maybe later tonight if you guys are still on. But I love you. And yeah, I'm going to get going.
all right,
All
have
right,
fun.
take care, friend.
All right, guys. See you later.
Bye.
How do I get up there?
How indeed.
That was great. That was great. That was great. Yes, definitely a weekend of just amazing stuff. I can't imagine what's going on. Well, definitely wish he was here, but excited for him and send him the love. Trying to get back off the. Hold on. What about?
What'd you do?
All right, so that's better. That's much better. Sorry, I keep getting distracted with Cat Lap and Cat here. He is just not having it. He wants to be there, so I'll have to figure it out.
And I have got to go
Anyway,
get coffee. I went to go get coffee before we started because I knew I was going to need a cup, and there was none. All I could do was make it, so I'm going to have to go grab an actual cup, but I'll be right back.
Absolutely. So, John, in the very first part of your book, you go into bias.
Yeah.
Bias. A lot of people just don't understand the idea. How could such a huge lie exist in the first place? Why would people just go along with that lie? Aren't they aware of their world? Aren't they aware of what's going on around them? These academics, these people in these supposed science-based industries that are supposedly traveling out of our atmosphere and going to these other worlds, these people that we are told to consider the experts on these things, why would they lie? What's the benefit? What's this whole bias thing about? What's your take on that?
Well, bias. I mean, look at the professional. Let's say I'm a prosecutor and I put a dude away in prison, and 10 years later, it turns out this DNA evidence seems to be the common thing that does that. It turns out the dude didn't do it. Do I really want to accept that I'm responsible for breaking up a family, ruining a guy's life for 10 years, ruin his reputation forever because I messed up? I'm supposed to be this great professional who gets it right and captures all the bad guys, but instead I caught a good guy, labeled him a bad guy, and the real bad guy got away and is still hurting people or whatever. That's really a hard thing to admit, even to yourself. Even if you just don't want to deal with your conscience, we got ways in our minds to trick ourselves into thinking, no, we got to be right. We got to be right. I was talking to a good friend of mine just a week ago about this topic. He's a former pilot. So I threw a lot of the gyroscope navigational devices. They got attitude indicators in aircraft. I threw a lot of that at him because I have non-professional, but some flying experience. And I could talk aviation with them, and there's a common term in aviation called straight and level flight that they all use. It's what you spend most of the time in when the aircraft is going both straight and level. I said, hey, you know what? If you fly over a sphere that rotates, there's no such thing as straight and level flight. It's never happened. I saw him stop and think, but he's like, no, it can't be. And so I throw another thing at him. He stops and thinks, and says, no, it can't be. Because, who is it that said it's easier to fool a man than to convince a man that he's been fooled? So, yeah, I in the book, I talk about Dr. Semmelweis. He was this Austrian or German dude, superhero. I think there should be a Dr. Semmelweis award out, like there's a Nobel Peace Prize award. This was pre-microbiology, so no one understood why, and he couldn't even explain why it worked, but he spent all this time. He was a dude who would go down and he would perform autopsies on people that died from, I can't remember the disease, cholera or something like that. And then he would immediately go and treat healthy patients and perform minor surgeries on them or something to that effect. And the death rate was really high in his hospital from people who did that. Then he just found out, couldn't explain why, but trial and error, found out that after he messed around with the corpses, if he washed his hands and then did surgery, the death rate of his patients fell off a cliff. Patient survival rate was up like 95%, some crazy high change right away. And so he started talking about this, and the other doctors, they couldn't argue with his results, but they didn't want to be wrong and have been killing all these patients. So they fired him. He went around trying to sell people on his idea. He eventually got committed to a mental institution, and I think it was 2 weeks later he was killed because he wouldn't keep quiet. So the bias, these doctors back then, they didn't want to accept the idea that their mistake, they're not listening to Semmelweis, got a lot of their patients killed. That's a very tough pill to swallow, to just admit that you're guilty when you're not on trial. There's no consequences for not doing it. You can just silence a guy.
And this was
against the whole industry. What
was his hospital? Did he work? Was it like a public hospital or like a free clinic or something, or a teaching hospital? Or do I remember that correctly? Right down the street.
This was like in Austria in like the 1800s, I think.
Yeah.
Right. You could look up those details. I don't recall them exactly what they were.
I think
What's
that's
really
right.
insane is I vaguely recall a historical description of this back in some of my research. And then, that goes on the shelf in your head and you kind of just don't think about it again. Twice in this week, I've been told that guy's story. Once in your book and once in this crazy show that's on Netflix right now. One of the doctors in it starts telling the story of this guy that he worked at this hospital that did the births and the autopsies. And when he finally told people to wash their hands, all the death rate went down. People were like, "No, you're nuts." Threw him in the institute.
Yeah.
He died there, and all the
killed.
fucking
Apparently
death rates went
beaten
right
to death.
back through the ceiling there at that place. They just the death rates escalated again. So
Yeah,
that
it
goes to
totally-
show you
Yeah.
how stupid
That's the
people
way
will
human
just
nature
follow
is.
their bullshit. Right? Exactly.
Can't swallow their pride. Can't say they've been wrong all this time and killing all these patients. They don't want to accept that they're guilty for that. They don't want the embarrassment, disgrace. I think we see a lot of that with the COVID stuff going on right now. That's got to be a factor in why it's playing out the way it is. But you see the same thing. You see the same thing in the tobacco industry in the 60s. That's like the classic example where they set up all these organizations to try to question the science and say, "Oh, it's not proven enough. It's not proven enough. Let's do more studies." And during the time, they're still selling their product to people under the guise of it being perfectly safe. I don't have anything against people that choose to smoke, but if the product is misrepresented, that's a problem right there, But I think the best example is Semmelweis, but he's not at all alone, We see it today. I mean, who doesn't know that truth stuff gets silenced? That's crazy talk. You can Google the name of my book. It still comes up on Google because it hasn't attracted their attention. But just in the last few weeks, if you Bing it, it doesn't come up at all. Or maybe it's 10 pages deep, but it used to come up on Bing. So yeah, even a book like mine with a very, very low circulation, because I question the establishment's views in ways that are credible. As soon as it attracts attention, they're going to crush it. And Bing, Bill Gates at Microsoft already has. So yeah, it's exceptionally hard. That's why I said I fought this cosmology for a year, trying to prove it wrong, trying to save my family from this nutcase belief, because who's dumb enough to go around believing that we're not spinning around? At my latitude near the tropics, it's around 1,000 miles an hour. I think if you're on the equator, it's a tad bit faster. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things to fight is people just believe it can't be true. My buddy was saying, "No, it can't be true." Well, why not? It just can't be true. But how your attitude indicator works, right? You said you trust your life to it. "No, it can't be true." "You want to borrow my gyroscope?" "No, I don't want to borrow it." I offered it to him. So I think it's sinking in with him. Maybe it'll take him a year. We'll see. But yeah, I thought it was important to kick it off with that, to kind of explain why this material is so hard to accept at face value.
And that section about the vested bias, the people who actually stand to gain, not just what people could lose, but the people who actually stand to gain from deceiving, from keeping these things hidden, from running with their fucking lives. I mean, not just academia, but think about those supposed space companies. How many bazillions of dollars have they gobbled up and given us fucking cartoons? So why would they lie? That's a given. That's an obvious one that people just don't get. And that one breaks my brain. I have a buddy that I've known my whole life, literally my whole life. And just over the last year, he's finally saw enough stuff about the first moon landing and, dry footprints and how they don't work and just all the details that wouldn't work. And he finally was like, okay, I guess we didn't go to the moon. And then just a week or two ago, he was here and like, did you see Shatner? And I'm like, come on, man, are we back there just because Captain Kirk went up? Come on, really? So, yeah, it's really easy for them to fall back into that trap, apparently. And
Yeah.
I get that it's, programming, literal mind warfare when they sit and watch it 24 hours a day. If it's not a entertainment program, it's being presented as real news. So I understand, but it just is very frustrating when you make some grounds with somebody and then suddenly they've gone back, one step forward, 3 steps back. So
Yeah, I hear you. It's just, I really appreciate knowing this. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's changed a lot of my life because I don't. It gives you a lot of discernment. You're not going to just believe something because it's on the news anymore. If you're onto something like this, I think it's improved my way of figuring things out in every aspect of my life. Because you're a lot more cautious about what you trust and what you believe. So it's been a tool in a lot of areas. I'm very grateful to have been shown this information. I've showed a couple friends and never right away, but several people have come to figure this out. If you're willing to seriously question your beliefs, set it all aside, set your bias aside, it's hard to escape. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to just give some people some tools, observations you can make yourself that prove, and I do mean prove, that the current cosmology can't be real. Because to prove a positive position can take a lot of books and a lot of years. But like I said, what opened my mind was cracking my faith in the current system. So that's what I did. I just wrote a book showing that the current cosmology has to be wrong on many fronts. Just about every chapter, if isolated by itself, proves that because of incompatible facts. So that's step one. Step one is removing the obstacle of the existing belief structure that's wrong. Then that opens your mind. Then you can go down the road and actually learn. You got to break the lie before you can put the truth in there,
Sorry, I'm just
sorry, I'm
watching
struggling
chat.
to get back to my mute from the cat here. I apologize.
No worries, man.
For me, it was literally, I have to see this. I've watched videos, I've done the mental exercises, the thoughts, and okay, well, if it's this, why that? I've done all that. I got to see this. So I headed out to the beach. I set up my camera, my telescope, my binoculars. My son was with me. He and I sat there and we watched the sun literally stay above the horizon and melt into the distance and turn into this green thing and go away. And at that point, we were both like, okay, so that's not fucking flying 93 million miles away. And my video showed the curve around and all the stuff that I wasn't supposed to see. And so I put that video up and people said, oh, that's glare. So I got a filter and I went back out and I did it again. And this time I saw even more crazy shit. In fact, I saw the sun do things, seemed to be interplaying with the clouds in some way. And at that point, we were still looking at, a possible sun being 3,000 miles up, according to some of the classic literature. So that was definitely not 3,000 miles up. Long story short, it's really all about these things for yourself. It's great to come to that realization simply by watching a few videos or reading a great book or talking to the right group of folks, but to actually sit down, repeat this experiment at least twice for me, if not more times. I've done a few that I didn't put up. Then definitely, your book is a great starting point for that. You have some demonstratable, easily repeatable. Some are a little mathematically advanced for me, but hey, that's not always a problem. You can get around those things too. So if you were going to tell somebody the first thing that you would go do this for yourself, where would you say? The gyroscope is the good spot?
Depends on who they are. I told you my pilot buddy, gyroscope, because they're going to sit there and they're going to stare at their attitude indicator most of the flight to make sure they're level, especially if they're going through clouds and they can't see the ground. That's one of the most important tools. So yeah, that's what I used with him. I don't know where he's at. It's sinking in. But, you know, I have a very good friend who, him and I are different. I'm more of a math, more of a hard fact observations guy. He's more intuitive. He's an artist, you know, he's got a lot of talent that I don't have. And he was watching this video of I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye, the fake science guy. And someone asked him about flat Earth. And of course they said it's stupid, but he was blown away by how mad they got. Like, who has an explosion because someone asks you something that you think is wrong? Okay, so they got other questions before, and they said no, or they just gave their answer. And this question caused a strong emotional response in that video. And he's like, why is that? Why are they so mad that someone asked them that? And that's what cracked it for him. He's like, there's something up with this. Something triggered those guys. And if I ask them if the Earth was a cube, they're not going to be triggered. Nothing else. But that's what this dude will tell you today. He'll say, why did they got so mad? It was crazy how mad they got. That wouldn't have done anything with me. Like, whatever, they're nuts. They're pissed off over nothing. Who cares? Move on. I want the objective. I want the math. I want the triangulation. And this and that, you know, but it's different things to different people. Different things will cause them to question, you know. That's what I've seen talking about this over the years. Some people, it's stuff in space, you know, like I wrote about how the structure of the galaxy doesn't work because they're too big and there isn't enough gravity to hold a galaxy together. And science has admitted this, so they invented dark matter and they stuffed it into the middle of the galaxy to create the fake gravity to hold them together, and that'll work on some people. You know, it's all different. So that's why I put a couple different things in the book, just because there's different people, different personalities, different ways of thinking. But yeah, everybody's different. You know, everybody's got a different story.
Our buddy Zach is currently there at the Flattoberfest. He plans on having a booth set up there, and one of the toys he will have for folks to walk up and play with will be a gyroscope.
Nice.
He says so many times that's been like the moment for people. You know, you can talk about what a gyroscope does all day long, but until you feel that resistance, that rigidity in space, there's just no way to explain that to somebody. You have to see how that feels. It's pretty mind-breaking.
And he says it's one thing for a little kid. When you hand it to a little kid, it's when it's fully spun up and they grab you like, whoa. They're like really just amazed at how it feels and just the feeling of that gyroscope as it's spun up. And then when you hand it to an older guy, right? He's 50, 60 years old. He's gruff. You know, he's seen a thing or two. And he's not going to be amazed like these little kids were. He's got a firm grip on what to expect. Then Zach says once he hands him that gyroscope, man, it's just like right back to those little kids, man. That 50, 60-year-old man face just lights up. He's like, oh wow, that's amazing. He says that's one of his favorite things about Flattoberfest is handing people a gyroscope that's spun up so that he can watch that expression change on their face. And I think that is really cool.
That is a cool toy. My gyroscope is one of my favorite toys. I don't have a lot of toys, but I got that one. So yeah, super cool. But yeah, I talked about that. I had to address the optical gyroscope because that always comes up, you know. So I went down the road with Michelson and Morley and this heavily censored physicist that almost no one's heard of who doesn't research this kind of thing called Sagnac. The French dude in his circle on the table where he built a circular interferometer, if you want to call it that, spun it around. But yeah, and I mentioned dark matter earlier, you know, as a cover-up for we built this giant galaxy and it doesn't work, so we got to stuff dark matter in it so there's enough gravity to keep the stars in orbit. So same thing. We got Sagnac and Michelson and Morley. We got them explained away with the Lorentz contraction, you know. Well, the Lorentz, he can't touch Sagnac because Sagnac's circular. But we had the Lorentz contraction, and we have Einstein come on the scene. And what does Einstein do? He tries to make everything really relative. There's some truth in relativity. There is, but there's two theories there. Each one has several parts, and a lot of that is there to explain away the Michelson and Morley results. And Sagnac just gets censored. That's why probably most of the people that watch this video aren't going to know who Sagnac is right away, because Sagnac's experiment, his lasers go in a circle. So Einstein's frame of references can't touch Sagnac's. We just got to bury him because he's really inconvenient, Can't be all embarrassed. So there's no such person as Sagnac. We got to bury him. If he ever comes up, he'll get labeled a quack. But yeah, it's really interesting to see people's, we were talking about earlier, vested bias and what they'll make up and what they'll dream up to patch holes in a crumbling theory. And pretty soon the theory's got more patches on it. You can't even see it anymore. There's no resemblance to what it once was.
Relativity theory is kind of like theory of evolution for me. Microevolution definitely works. So therefore, I kind of think micro relativity, me and the speed of this car while I'm in my car and all those things, yeah, that can work. I can see that. But when you start that macro evolution and changing species and shit like that, that goes out the window. Same thing with me being on one side of the sun and then 6 months later I'm on the other side of the sun, but I can't see different stars, and that's relativity. I don't think so, guys. Don't think so.
Yeah, I hear you. Evolution's another good one, like the fossils are so missing that we decide, well, an alligator laid an egg and a turkey popped out because we don't have any transitional forms. That theory is an admission that there's no transitional forms. That's all it is. It's nothing more than an admission that it's an evidence-free belief system. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of cool that opposition creates all these patches, because you can point out and say, look at that. The only evidence for that belief right there is the fact that the existing theory doesn't work unless we make it up. That's not how science works. You go by the facts. You don't go by a theory and then go around finding support columns for it by making stuff up. But that's what the opposition has to do.
And that's why truth doesn't need defending. It can defend itself. It's time is on the truth's side, because a lie just requires another lie to perpetuate it. And the longer you have to perpetuate a lie, the longer and more lies you have to create to cover up that first initial lie. So when somebody starts to question either any of them or even the very basic first lie, and just start really digging down to see if that's even true, none of it holds up. And I think that's why I don't necessarily believe that the COVID idiocy is flat earth related, but I can certainly see how it could be, because the flat earth, like you mentioned, John, it makes you question authority. That authority that's been claiming that knowledge, that the monopoly on information, on what is true and correct. And we disseminate that down to the teachers who will teach our children what is true and correct, because we told them what is true and correct. So once you start to question the information, question the people that are giving you that information, it's game over. It's a house of cards, and you just set up a big fan. And that's why they can't let Flat Earth be on page 1 of the Google searches. That's why YouTube has to dedicate so many resources to keeping us hidden, because if you en masse question authority, then what do you have? People thinking for themselves and making decisions for themselves and taking responsibility for themselves. And the government just can't have that. So
yeah, I get it. It's pushing hard for more control. I'm blown away with how fast this has happened in the COVID world. And I think if the true cosmology got out there, the confidence, people's trust would be completely broken. I mean, sure, we'd still want a fire department, basic government services. Education might go away. It'd be highly, highly discredited as a public education, as an institution, as a function. Because, I mean, it's crazy to teach something that wrong from the beginning. But, one law, I guess authority and truth should be separate. I haven't thought this through, but maybe if we got a chance to redo a country's constitution. We should put in the separation of authority, separation of knowledge and state, separation of education and state. If that makes any sense, I'd have to think it through to make it workable. But
No, but I
something
feel
like
where
that.
you're headed with it. I like that. I like the sentiment for damn sure.
Yeah, separation of knowledge and state. I think that's one of those inherent things that just sort of cannot be unentwined until we unentwine the state. I think that the state is just without knowledge, period. Sorry, I'm going to ramble for a bit because my blood pressure is a little up with my work, trying to stick me with things that I don't want to be stuck with.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I may find myself without a job in a month or so. Well, where I live, Hawaii, for anyone listening that doesn't know, it's very aggressive out here. If you look around how COVID's done different parts of the world, the island countries seems to be pretty aggressive because you can't just leave on your own. Unless you got private means, your own airplane, your own boat, you can't just leave. So, yeah, it's we may be leaving while we still can in the next month or two. We'll see. But yeah, interesting world.
So let's start this back. You said you were trying to just point out that the attitude indicator to your pilot friend. Being former military, was it, you didn't find this when you were in the military, but have you found that maybe other prior military take this a little bit easier? So the former Navy, because you would think that pilots, submariners, you'd think that people that are around these gyroscopes and interact and use these gyroscopes would be able to get it a little sooner, or maybe have had that question raised up in their mind once or twice. Has that anything like that been made easier, or are they still just have all that vested bias where they just say, you know what, you're crazy, John, no thanks?
You know what? I went through a lot of navigation training in the Navy with different kind of gyroscopic compasses, attitude indicators, different kinds of gyroscope-driven navigational devices, comparing a gyroscopic compass to a magnetic compass, so on and so forth. And I would imagine it's the same in a private nautical or aeronautical navigation school, but when you're in that student mindset, you just believe because you got to pass the test, and you just believe because you got to learn the skill to make it work. And there's not a lot of globes in navigation school. It's all flat charts. And if you put 5 flat charts in a row, it's still just one big flat chart. I took a ship. I was on the bridge navigation team. We went from San Diego to the Middle East. We hung out in Bahrain for a weekend and hung out in the Indian Ocean for a long time. And then we came back to San Diego, looping around the south coast of Australia. And I didn't have a lot of area to do this, but if you put all the charts together that we looked at, because we actually use paper charts, strange as it is in the Navy, that, you know, for security reasons, in case the ship gets hit with a missile, electrics are semi-crippled, we got the paper there. You put them all together, and you know what? They're all flat, all together, traveling that much distance. So, yeah, like I said, when you're learning, you're in that student mindset. As I was, I'll admit it, semi-shamefully. It just didn't occur to me that it doesn't make sense to navigate using these tools on a globe, because 15 degrees an hour, that's a lot. If your attitude indicator is off by 5 degrees, that's a lot. If your gyroscopic compass is off by 2 degrees, and let's say you're in an airplane, you're going fast, well, 2 degrees after a couple hundred miles is a lot of distance to be off if you're going to a city or whatever. So,
well, that kind of goes around back to that whole bias, vested bias to me too. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times in school. Luckily, my mother backed me up. It's all of this. You know, she wanted me to go to school to learn how to learn, not to repeat back bullshit.
oh
And
yeah,
so she told me early on, if you have questions they can't answer, you keep asking until they find the person that can. And I literally have sat in the office with her as she defended my not just accepting the answer. So that was a definite benefit for me through my life with looking into what might other otherwise be considered lies. So the idea that just, as you're discovering these things to question in your education system, they will literally do everything they can, including back you into a corner to try to keep you going along with the fucking party line. And if you question it, you are ostracized, you are pointed out, you are sent to the principal's office. The number of professors that I had to stay after class to speak about my paper or whatever. Now that sometimes led into lifelong friendships that, have developed, and well, I say lifelong, up till about 20 years ago when I just lost contact with all those people. But definitely I made friends with professors that I questioned their stuff and they liked that. But for the most part, they don't. For the most part, they don't want the questions. They want to go home and eat dinner and go to bed. They don't want to have to think through all the crap they've already thought through, and it's settled and that's done for them. So why would they let you break their little convenient paradigm?
Oh, exactly. And if they're wrong, if there's something fundamental in their field that is wrong, a professor's generally going to have a PhD, and you blow up their PhD, they don't want that. That comes across indirectly as an attack, and the bias is going to kick in, and they're going to say, no, I don't want to believe that. I'm going to believe in this old thing that I've believed my whole life because it's proven, and I've given all these lectures about it, and it can't be wrong. How can it be wrong? I've taken this position. I'm in this industry where we all believe it. So yeah, I used to study the whole evolution thing a lot, many years ago. And you run into that. You run into people just being unwilling to consider things because it goes against the fundamental core of their beliefs. And if you threaten their livelihood,
their character, it's not just their livelihood. It's for a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, they've made it so much of who they are.
Yeah.
Even if it's because it's a little factoid that they've repeated to somebody else a few times. Well, shit, 15 people heard me say they just grew lettuce in space for the first time, so I'm the guy that's telling people they grew lettuce in space. So I can't really go back and be like, oh yeah, by the way, they grew lettuce in space for the first time again. Or I can be like, and I don't believe in space anymore because space is not what we think it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm the guy that just told all these people that they grew lettuce in space for the first time. So that's going to be who I am. I'm that guy now. And whether it's a conscious thought or it's just this accumulation of these little bitty influences like that over time, a million little things that affects you like that. But it's crazy. Has there been any, as a man of faith, have you found a lot of issues with bringing this type of information to the church?
I generally don't bring it up a lot, as I've found a lot of people are really, they'll react really strongly to it. Because it makes it, they don't want to know that God describes in his Bible the earth is a flat circle. They don't want to hear that. That's crazy talk, right? So it's almost like, I call it science.
Yeah, but a circle's a sphere. A circle's a sphere.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I don't know how many times I've gone back to the Hebrew and looked at that. And there's a couple places where it's described that way. And, very end of Revelation as well. It says they go out on the broad plain of the earth, or the Greek, I think it says plateau of the earth. And I couldn't tell you where, but there's a couple places where it says that. And yeah, it's almost like the scientism, as it's called lately, is a competing deity. And, the Catholic missionaries hundreds of years ago took Catholicism to South America, and they didn't want to completely reject their native traditional religions. So we got in South America, now you go down there, we got the forest monster icon right next to the Virgin Mary, right next to the Ooga Booga Man, right next to the baby Jesus, and we're burning incense to all of them because they don't want to just completely convert, right? So same thing, bias. Taught one thing, Earth is a sphere, it spins around the sun at an average speed of 66.6 thousand miles an hour and rotates on an axis that is 66.6 degrees above the plane in which it orbits, but it's just a coincidence, right? Nothing to that.
No.
Yeah, it's all coincidence.
So we've got a question in chat from our
That's
good
how math
buddy
works.
Adam. The Adam Meekin. Wants to know, John, did the Navy ever tell you what the gyro compass was actually used for? Do you use it to set a bearing, or are you just trying to figure out true north? What is the actual purpose?
Well, the way it works is because the gyroscope is rigid in space, you spin it up and you set it pointing north, and then as the ship, aircraft, submarine, whatever turns, the gyroscopic compass doesn't. So you always know which way is north, and then you always know which way your boat's pointed. So that stuff's especially important in submarines because there's no visual reference, there's no GPS, there's nothing. You go underwater in a submarine, you're going to get disoriented really fast. So those instruments are especially important to those guys. But yeah, that's what it does. Rigidity in space, and it continues. You point it north, and then relative to north, you always know which way your boat's pointed. So if I'm on an airplane and I'm parked on the beach on the north coast of Canada, facing south, the gyroscopic compass is going to say I'm facing south. And then 6 hours later, I've done a 90-degree turn because I'm parked, I'm not flying, right? Because the Earth rotates 90 degrees every 6 hours. The gyroscopic compass is still going to show me facing south, which means what? It means we're not rotating. We didn't actually do the turn. Either that or the gyroscopic compass is useless because it doesn't pick up when we turn 90 degrees. How could you turn 90 degrees, have a navigational instrument that doesn't pick that up? That's crazy talk, you know? So, yeah, that's the gist of what the gyroscopic compass does. The magnetic compass isn't going to be affected because it just points north all the time. Because it's a magnetic field. It just always points north. But they're not as accurate because the Earth's magnetic field isn't that strong, and true north and magnetic north aren't in exactly the same spot. So we rely much more heavily on the gyroscopic compass. The magnetic compass is there, but it's usually a backup in case the gyro compass breaks.
I wonder how the Navy defines the gyro compass.
What do you mean?
Well, I was just looking at Adam's question. It was ask him what the Navy told him a gyro compass was for. As if, like, it's real sort of basic stuff here. All right, Seaman, here we are. This is a gyro compass. And it does what? It spins. It's a compass. It's a gyroscope. Okay, it's a gyroscope and it spins, and we can find north because it's a compass. We get that, but we use this specifically. We spent all this money to include this on every single ship, on every single plane, and everything that we use because it does this specific act that only a gyro compass can do, and that's why we use a gyro compass. Is there anything that where they just sort of say, look, this is the only reason we use a gyro compass, the only reason that this is used here is for this, otherwise none of this would work? Is there anything that would sort of give any clues as to, like, what did they do before the gyro compass is? What makes navigation any better or any different post gyro
Well, we've had
compass?
magnetic compasses for a long time, but they're not that accurate. You know, if you're on a ship and some waves come, it's going to knock that needle around because
Right.
the magnetic pull on a piece of metal, you know, if I don't have a metal pen, let's say I had one, you know, it's just not that strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I drop this thing, it's going to fall straight down. It's not going to fall north and down because it's so weak.
Yep.
So yes, that it's older, it's much simpler to build a magnetic compass, but they're not accurate enough to be that great. You know, they're just not accurate enough. So they are a backup. Can you navigate with one? Yes, people did it for hundreds of years before we had gyroscopic compasses. I think an attitude indicator and another gyroscopic navigational instrument didn't go on airplanes as standard until the 60s or something like that. I couldn't tell you. They probably still make cheap little ultralights that don't have them. But also, you know, celestial navigation works. It's even harder to use because you got to go to a lot of school to figure it out. And if it's cloudy, you're done. And it's not a very, it works, but it's extremely hard to use when you can actually see the stars, which is only at night and only on clear days. But yeah, the gyroscopic compass is probably one of the most useful tools. We relied on it very heavily. We have GPS, but we are discouraged from using it because some of the adversaries we've got can take out satellites and then it stops working. And if we don't know how to navigate, normally we're done. We get lost. So
It would seem, according to Adam there in chat, a gyro compass cannot be used on an aeroplane. Not sure.
I had one on an aircraft, and it was the primary navigational device. I don't think I don't know where he's coming from with that.
I'm not either, for sure. And he's certainly welcome to pop in if he would like and clarify.
Yeah,
It's a
you've
good
got the
friend
link.
of ours.
Same link. Links never
Same
changed.
link. Never changes.
That's
It's
how we
eternal.
do.
The eternal link.
But yeah, you're,
I know they're used on aircraft. You can get a flight training manual probably for free online, a basic one at least, and you're going to see gyroscopic compasses in there. Now he might be saying there are optical gyros because those are used in place of mechanical gyroscopes in some cases, but they work on a different principle. I wrote a chapter about those as well. Like we talked earlier about Sagnac and Michelson and Morley and those guys, and how Einstein had to help cover up some of their findings, but they work more on the interferometer principle than the mechanical gyroscope principle.
Well, many years ago, a friend of the realm, our good buddy John Savage, did a little experiment of his own where he set up a gyroscope, and over a 24-hour period, it didn't move, which on a spinning ball, the way he's had it set up, it should have reflected some type of motion. There were some different ideas about the way he had his setup done through some criticism. So he redid the setup and completely isolated the motor and things like that.
added a battery pack, cut out the wire
Added a
completely,
battery, took the
balanced
wire
out.
off, just
Yeah.
all these things, right? And redid the experiment, and shocker, no motion over a 24-hour period. So yeah, definitely the realm has had a history with gyroscopes. A good friend of ours, Rob Durham, damn, my brain went completely blank. Anyway, has, last I knew, sorry, my cats are active today. Last I knew had, was it the ring gyroscope he had? Man, it's been too many shows ago now. Good Lord, we need to get him back in here. Am I remembering this right? It was a ring laser gyroscope?
That sounds
There
right.
is such a device.
That sounds right. Is that a thing? Okay. Help me in chat. Y'all know I'm struggling here. I've got cats eating my back alive. I'm all scratched up, and I'm trying to remember hard things. Adam knows, I'm sure. But anyway, definitely the gyros compasses, the gyroscopes, definitely just a toy gyroscope, as we said earlier with Zach. There is should be enough to show anybody that this theory they've got of us hurling around this sun at 66. Another coincidence there. Anyway, yeah,
66,000.
exactly. That
Average
coincidence. But definitely just, there's no way. I mean, especially when you start working into things like the perihelion and the aphelion and how close we are in our winter versus summer, and just like all these things, the accelerated force that would have to either break us going around or accelerate us coming back around, or just all these different things that wouldn't. Oh wait, hang on.
So
I see Adam has an answer here.
yeah, he does. He says, so how does a gyro compass work then? Is it able to define true north based on a gyroscopic precession caused by the rotation of ball Earth? Says he's not being an arse, he's just asking for clarity.
Every time I've used a gyroscopic compass, we turn it on, the motor spins up the gyro, and we point it at north. We manually point it at north. And then we lock it in place, and then the ship turns and the gyroscope doesn't.
Got you.
It
So the
tells
gyro
us
compass doesn't find north, it locks in your relative position to where you say true north is according to the compass?
Every time I've used one, that's how we've done it. Now, there might be some twist on a design out there where it works a little bit differently, or some fancy thing for, $10 million airliners where the pilot doesn't have to dial it in himself. It links with GPS or something else in the aircraft, does it for him. I understand those guys have it pretty good because the airplanes basically fly themselves. Maybe that's what he's referring to, but the manual ones, military having a preference for manual stuff, so you can function if the ship gets hit with a missile and half the stuff stops working.
That's my job. That's what I do as well. For a lot of tanks and site control units for the military. All the manual sighting controls.
They want the systems to keep working even if half of them break. So they're all independent, and there's a lot of manual stuff.
So it basically is told what north is from the get-go. Like, it's defined for
one way or another. Somebody or something tells it what north is. I've never heard of an exception.
Well, that's one thing. I think that's really what Adam was looking for there is how that would work. So yeah, you lock the gyro to north and it keeps that bearing is basically what he's trying to determine. Because it seems like this was a discussion we had with Rob back when he was on the show, is how this thing would determine north. It's freaking like laser, like the one he had on the show was the fancy one that FE Core had gotten, and he had it for a while. He may not currently have that in his possession. I know Nora saying he had a normal compass at a recent conference, so he may have given it back to FE Core. Again, we're kind of out of the loop a bit sometimes with our crazy hours, so help us keep in touch with these guys so we'll know what's going on. I'll definitely reach out to Rob and see what he's doing and get him back in here.
So, John, you would see no reason why, if you were to just be playing around with the Navy's gyro compass, you couldn't take it and point that bastard due west, mark it north, and just say, all right, we locked in at north, and we're just going to run it like west is now north, and see what happens.
Every gyro compass I've used, you could do that, but there's no reason to.
No reason to. Everybody points it north, right?
You'll run your submarine into a mountain underwater or something like that.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
It only really works if north is north. So you point it north, and that's why.
Calibrating. It's just an instrument. You're just calibrating it. That's all you're doing,
Do you know what they use to find north? I mean, I guess
we would bounce it off a known. There might be. We might be starting from a known location where we know exactly where it is, or we'll cheat and use the GPS because it's really easy, or something to that effect, or we'll know where we are. We'll have some way of knowing at that moment.
Gotcha.
And if that happens while we're out in the middle of the ocean and we have an opportunity, we'll check it, because they can drift on their own. It might be half a degree off after several hours or whatever. So there's ways to check it,
So the accuracy of the gyro compass doesn't come in its ability to be accurate at finding north, pointing to north. It's not necessarily accurate in that regards. It's accurate into maintaining its rigidity in space so that you can find and maintain a bearing in relation to where you set true north to be.
Yes, every one I've used is like that. Yes.
Gotcha. So I don't know if that helps at all, Ed, because that's, if Josh can understand it, and that was my basic understanding basically before the show started.
Right.
So I don't know.
I checked on Rob's channel, and it looks like the last video he put up about it was back in December of 2019, and it was definitely the FE Core gyro compass. So I'm probably conflating a few different things we've talked about over these last couple of years. But definitely at one point he had it and was going to do some things and find out, and then the world broke. So it's like he hasn't actually posted a whole lot since then.
If he has something different, I'd take a look at it. But I can tell you, I've done this no small number of times. And you turn it on, you point it north, that's calibrating it like every other instrument, and it stays north. So, yeah.
Right, and I'm sure that's part of what he was. I see that here in the description for the video of trying to determine if spin up it will align to north. So apparently that was definitely what he was figuring out. he was all over this though. I mean, Rob, he had early videos with AutoCAD showing how the horizon would do with a flat surface and a curved surface and a triangle shaped surface and just all the. He did some amazing early day, really technical stuff.
And
He was
see-
one of my go-to video guys early on. I'm glad to see his stuff is still up.
And I guess maybe that's where a lot of that confusion is, because for some reason, now that you're saying that, that sticks in my mind too, that you had to get it spun up and it was supposed to drift to where true north was. And for some reason in my mind, that's why it was supposed to be more accurate, because as it spun up, then you could sort of maybe point it in the general north direction, but the actual spinning it up to get that locked in rigidity in space, it was supposed to lock onto true north somehow. And then
There could be a variation of a gyroscopic compass that works that way. I don't know how it would work, honestly.
I'm going to drop that video here in the chat just for you to have access to it. You definitely don't have to peruse it at the moment. Just check it out. It's definitely a different specific compass. He talks about the brand and the make. He takes it apart literally in the video. It shows the inner workings. And
you know who would have been good to talk about this with, John? Anybody else from the Iron Realm, really. But we're really trying to do our best here, John. Please bear with us. We have a real basic understanding of what's going on here, whereas there could have been
I'd be interested in taking a look at what he has to say, but from my experience, you point it to the north, and it stays that way.
Well,
although compasses can have certain ones, fancy ones, might have fancy features in them where it does more stuff for you. That's why I talk about gyroscope-driven navigational instruments to an extent, but it's mostly what does the raw gyroscope do? Because that avoids all discussion and issues about maybe there's something in there that compensates for the Earth's rotation or whatever, you know?
And see,
I guess Adam's definitely not trying to throw a wrench in or dispute. He just wants
I get it.
some clarity. He's saying here, apparently, or well, according to BCB in chat, apparently, no, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. That my chat moved. It was David Howard saying, yeah, all the ballers are running around saying the gyro compass detects precession. And then Adam clarifies, yeah, good to hear. Sadly, some ballers claim the gyro compass points true north because of Earth rotation causes precession to do so. Good to hear someone who has used it and understands it. So he was just trying to clarify.
Okay. And he's welcome to go to the website that I put in my book where I bought my gyroscope. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get a dime, but they're all welcome to go there and get their own and try it. You know, it's not hard. It's not dirt cheap.
Oh, many have.
$50
Many have.
right there.
Yeah. And I'm lost in chat trying to play catch up.
I can't see the comments, but that's cool.
That's cool. Thank you guys for being here. They are definitely throwing a lot of great stuff around.
Okay.
By the way, guys, you can head over to Amazon. If you check the description, that very first link is to Amazon. It's $8. $8.
Yeah, for a cup of really expensive coffee.
Right, for overpriced, crappy coffee. You can
shitty,
skip
skunky
that.
coffee.
Right.
And almost half of that goes to the distributors and the publishers and all that. I get like $4 and change from every sale. Honestly, I almost decided to make the book free, but then the problem is who reads a free book, right? So
well,
I got a real copyright and made it a real book just so people would be interested enough. I think it increases the circulation a little bit. I do not make a lot of money off it.
And in the spirit of Tommy, that flat fellow, where he does his very best to support the things that he cares about, I too try to do my best. So your $4.50, I sent you that $4 because I wanted to make sure that whatever money you got, I wanted to make sure I gave you some of mine because it is well worth it for this book.
Thanks.
It is I just want everybody else to consider doing the same because it is money well spent.
Well, I appreciate that, and if I ever see you in person, I owe you a $4 cup of fancy coffee.
Nope. Mine's like $2.50 for a half-pound bag of ground coffee.
That's
Morning roast, the donut, whatever Aldi's is, whatever Aldi's brand coffee. I mix their hazelnut and I mix their donut store or their breakfast blend, whatever the light blend is. I just mix those two together. That shit is the best fucking coffee out there. I don't care what you're serving. So yeah,
Nice.
real cheap. I'm a cheap ass date. So absolutely.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tommy, by the way, for the
Thank you.
super chat.
Tommy. Yep, that's where I was going. Thank you, Tommy, for those glasses, brother. We need them. And I dropped the Amazon link there for John Reed's book again in the actual chat if you guys can't find it in the show description. Sometimes when you're on a device and you're popped out, it gets difficult. So there it is in chat.
Robert Page, yes, Aldi is the bomb. For some reason, I was thinking today about you, Robert, and was feeling guilty because I don't feel like I've shouted you out enough. It's like I see Robert Page in chat, but there's something in my brain telling me that you just haven't said his name recently. In relation to as many times as you've seen his name, you should be saying his name more. I don't know what it is. Maybe that's God's little whisper to me, because it's those little intuitive things that make me speak up. So when I saw you there in chat, Robert, I felt the need to speak up and say your name and say hi. So yes, Aldi is the bomb, Robert. Absolutely is. So many good things to be found at Aldi. Ryan Q. Vincent says he bought the book earlier. Looks interesting. Awesome. That's what I like to hear.
Cool.
Support what you love or it will go away. Probably. Unless it's IRM. Doesn't matter.
Can't make us go.
We're
away.
not
Yeah.
going away. But that being said, one of those other things that I did feel a compulsion to speak about was support for Iron Realm. Make sure you have clicked that subscribe button and hit that little bell notification, because we do go live every Tuesday and Friday morning, and again Friday evening. We go live no fewer than 3 times a week. So make sure that bell notification is mashed so that when we do go live, you get notified and you don't miss it. Provided YouTube will tell you, because sometimes they don't. And then maybe hit all notifications too, and give us a thumbs up. We've got some really good playlists out there, and we've got more content on our channel than you will be able to go through. Period. You can go start right now, and you're going to have to live your life, eat, shower, use the restroom, maybe earn some Federal Reserve notes, some life credits if you need to, and every last waking moment spent listening to Iron Realm Media, you're not going to get through all of our content. How gross is that? How gross is that?
Inundation, my brother. Inundation is the key. So the book, John, at the chapter I just finished, or the sections I just finished, talking about the sun, distance to the sun, and proofs you can show that sun is definitely, well, doesn't seem to be 93 million miles away. It seems to be a whole lot closer. And I think we even talked, or I talked about in my video where I had video showing the sun interacting, playing around inside clouds because of the filtration I used. You could see that happening. Just things that shouldn't be happening, let alone not from 93 million miles, not even from 3,000 miles away. So just, I noticed in some of the proofs, the sidereal proof, kind of gets us back around to that 3,000 mile point. Sorry, kitty. How you doing? So we've had a lot of discussion in our group on this topic. People that have come on our show, really good friends of the show, have done some amazing things trying to figure out about the sun. Our buddy Chris Van Matre actually has an amazing setup on his telescope, and he videoed and recorded what appeared to be a second sun, which was then clarified and verified by another good friend who's done some incredible astrophotography out there, Crow 777, also using a similar setup, eliminating all possibility of lens flare and glare and all of that. Also using the same coordinates, found what appears to be a second sun in our sky. Zach and Cammie then went into it with some polarization layers and films they had, and started playing around with that, and our buddy Lucas. Again, we need the whole crew here, man. When it's just Josh and I, we're rambling through a lot of stuff we're trying to keep up with. So, but the idea of polarized magnetics in the sky above us, creating some of what's going on. The way the sun can be completely eliminated with polarization and brought back, and just all these different things, and that second sun as well. Have you looked into any of that at all? Or are you pretty much staying with the 3,000 miles up, or just wondering where you are in your thoughts about the sun? Because that's the biggest enigma there is for me.
Yeah, I hear you. So in the book, there's a lot of topics I could have covered, but I didn't. Even some chapters that I started writing and didn't include because I couldn't get close enough or all the way to absolute certainty. And I didn't want anything in there that was doubtable. So there's a lot of like half-written chapters I have that I'll never publish. And there's some topics that I could get to certainty, but the level of complexity was so much that, you know, I don't want to try to like teach calculus. It's not that kind of book, right? That's not the purpose of the book. So I just left a lot of stuff out. I wanted to keep it really simple and 100% beyond any doubt, verifiable independently. But so a lot of that stuff I didn't go into. I measured the sun, the altitude of the sun, using triangulation, like many people do, only when the sun was 45 degrees high in the sky or higher, because that brings the atmospheric refraction, which can make the sun look lower in the sky than it really is. It brings it down to like nothing, like a tenth or a hundredth of a degree. I don't remember exactly how much. So if the sun was not at least 45 degrees high in the sky, I didn't do it. It's because I wanted it to be as accurate as possible. Now,
and repeat.
It's my position, and I can't prove this, but I've seen some interesting optical experiments online. Kyle Adams has a good one posted on his site where he's got a fish aquarium, and there's like really thick, sugary water on the bottom, and then almost pure water on top. And he shines a laser into it, and you can see the laser as it goes from the thin, pure water to the really thick, transparent fluid that you don't really want to call water anymore. It's like maple syrup at the bottom. It curves down.
Yes, I know that exact video.
Yeah, and so yep. I think that as the sun gets farther away, the fact that it's either above the much more dense part of the atmosphere that we're in right now, you know, wherever it is, I don't. There's a lot of questions I don't have answered, but I think the sun appears to be lower in the sky as it goes farther away. I've seen that demonstrated at least one other different way. So a lot of the measurements where people get the sun lower in the sky, in my opinion, I can't prove it, but in my opinion, it's because it's farther away and it looks lower. And that is why this was one of the hardest things for me to come to a conclusion on. And I'm not 100% there yet, but it looks like the sunset when it appears. I live in Hawaii. I can see a sunset on ocean. It looks like that is caused by an atmospheric effect because it goes farther away, and so the sunlight enters increasingly thick layers of the atmosphere at a steeper angle as it goes farther away. So it appears to be lower in the sky until it gets so far away the sunlight no longer reaches us, and to us that looks like the sunset. So best as I can tell in my studies, that's my view. Like I said, I can't prove it. I'm not 100% certain, but that's what it looks like to me.
Interesting that about the sunset, because at exactly the time of day that I was videoing, because due to my limited setup at the time, I was using a really early tablet on a easel. I mean, I was basic. I'm doing it myself, DIY science. My telescope was decent. My binoculars were astronomical binoculars, but the camera I was using was really crap. And it was sunset was the only time I could really catch enough of what I was trying to see, and was it going below the horizon? That was the part I was really trying to determine. And that's when I caught whatever happening with the sun. in the clouds, and again, it's usually that time. I mean, it's really difficult to look straight up overhead noon and look at the sun area without blinding yourself anyway. So sunset generally is a lot nicer viewing. But that idea of, I guess, the layering and the angle, and I don't know, that's, yeah, intriguing. Well, I know we've definitely got no clue. Different ideas, different people. Some of the Eric Dollard idea of it being a transformer for energy from somewhere else. Where's that? Lots of ideas. Oh man. Just so you guys know, if I suddenly disappear on you, we've had some weather in the area, and before the show, my electricity definitely blinked on me, so I hear it kind of getting riled up out there. So if I disappear, I didn't leave on purpose.
All right.
Anyway, so firmament. Just wondering. I mean, you've obviously got stuff you didn't put in the book, and I kind of thought that this was going to kind of more be a primer than anything else that this book was trying to be. If the sun isn't what we think it is, and the stars aren't what we think they are, so the history of the dome, what do you think? I mean, our buddy Lucas with the galvanic cell idea and how that could work. I've seen some of the ideas of the toroidal field, and that definitely could work. Just different ideas like that. What's your take? Where you lean in?
Well, I believe there's a firmament. I mean, that's mentioned, I don't know, 10 or 15 times in the Bible, which I am a believer of. The Navy has a radar system called over-the-horizon radar. It is used for very, very, very long-range radar. We can put one on the East Coast and see stuff halfway across the Atlantic Ocean. And it doesn't point horizontally. It points up in the sky. Now, the cover story is that the radar waves go up and they bounce off a region of the atmosphere called the ionosphere, which starts at an altitude where the air is 1/500th. Is it 1/500th? It's well under 1%. I think it's 1/500th as thick as the air we breathe at sea level. And it bounces off that like a mirror, goes down over the Atlantic Ocean, catches scatter off a piece of steel like a ship, goes back up the ionosphere, bounces off that like a hard mirror, and comes back down to the receiver. And then based on that data, the trajectory and everything, we can see a blurry spot on the Atlantic Ocean, which we call a ship. You don't get clear images like that, but that's how over-the-horizon radar works. Now, if we're talking to satellites, and I don't believe satellites are exactly what we say they are. I got a whole chapter on that. But if I can call a satellite with a satellite phone, and let me clarify something here. Radar is an acronym. The first R in radar stands for radio, because radar waves are just radio waves that don't carry any information on them. So if there's a layer of the atmosphere so thin, it's, for practical purposes, a vacuum, that radio waves bounce off of like a mirror, except for satellite phone, satellite internet, all transmissions from weather satellites sending down huge amounts of video data, and everything else we do with satellites. Just this one kind of radar bounces off it like a mirror. That's a little weird to me. I can't prove, but I think over-the-horizon radar, OTH, is bouncing a signal off the firmament. I think it's there. So I don't know about the double sun thing. I haven't gone down that road. I haven't studied it much. Is it possible they're catching a reflection of the sun? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
That's possible.
I don't know.
Something we've thought of, yes, sir.
You'd have
It's
to
definitely a mind scratcher there.
Yeah. There's a ton of stuff that has yet to be worked out.
It's the polarization that really throws a whole kink into that double sun, and the fact that it disappears under polarization and reappears.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I'd like to look into that. I'm gonna have to dig through your stuff and find that, because I'm very well studied on some of the stuff, like what I wrote about, a few other things, but that's new to me. It maybe I've heard people research that the light that reflects off the firmament becomes polarized. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, but I don't know. I don't know about that. But yeah, interesting stuff. I'll have to dig into that. That's way beyond what I write about, because we cannot get to a high level of certainty just yet.
I wonder if a rainbow, if you did a double rainbow and put a polarized filter up, if you change the polarization, if one of the rainbows might disappear.
Oh, rainbows disappear. We got rainbows all day long out here in Hawaii. You got two mountain ranges and a short distance of each other and all kinds of rain.
Under polarization, with a polarized filter?
I don't take pictures of it. I got polarized sunglasses. I go like this, and then I go like this, and the rainbow goes away. You know? So the light from a rainbow is polarized. There's a clue. I get what you're saying now. It just clicked. That's a clue.
Yep.
Okay.
And then when you look at a double rainbow, it's not like it's two rainbows side by side. It's the reflection of one. If you look at the colors, it's a reflection.
Very muted, yeah. And reversed.
Yes.
Muted and they're reversed.
Interesting. Yeah, I wish there was a way to get some good high altitude photography that was believable. Seen a few of those rockets and the weather balloon photography. I thought of this the other day. It wouldn't be cheap, but you could combine the two. Didn't a bunch of people sent up rockets, and I know Rob Skiba sent up a weather balloon to get some high altitude photography.
Yeah,
is it completely out of the
Buster?
Yeah, is it completely out of the question to build some kind of mechanism to use 4 weather balloons to carry a rocket that someone in our community knows how to build up to weather balloon altitude, 150,000 feet, whatever, and then launch it? I think we got to go higher than what we've gone. We got to have more GoPros on it. I don't think it's crazy talk to build some kind of a mini platform that a handful of weather balloons could get up there. And then we could launch the rocket remotely and recover it with the footage on it. Just throwing it out there. I don't have a GoFundMe ready to go. What's that?
I like that idea. I never thought about the rocket. Mine was always get a way to get a drone high enough with like a repeater that you could then launch from it. Have a repeater with it so you could get a height and then take the drone up higher than you normally could. Breaking all the FAA regulations, of course. But yeah, that was, you can't see them, but I've got all my dead drones I've killed hung on the wall over here. So yeah, I was in drones early, and then kind of when they got really stupid expensive, I had to get out of it. But just that idea of getting something up there that we can then get higher with, because where we can technically get from down here isn't, whatever shit they're doing is way above where we can play around or see.
Yeah, and if you can get high enough, the atmospheric effect is gone. So if you can get high enough at midnight and look horizontally and see the sun, that's not disputable. I'm not saying everyone would immediately change their beliefs, because if they were going to do that, they already would have. I just think it'd be pretty awesome at midnight, when the sun is allegedly straight down, get something high enough to capture it on video. Anyway, that was my idea of a way to get a rocket with a camera much higher if we launched it from 100,000+ feet.
Maybe we need to find a way to quickly inflate a balloon that we can stuff into a nose cone of a rocket.
That too. Same idea. That might even work better than building some platform that may or may not work.
Out. Then you have a launch, self-inflate, and then ascend from that height. But see, then you get into the pressure thing.
See, that's what I was wondering too, about the inflation of that balloon at altitude. How would that work?
You can probably fit enough helium to inflate a weather balloon inside one of those little air rifle cartridges. I mean, I don't think they sell helium, in cans that size, but there's probably a workaround, some kind of way to do that.
I'm sure you could refill a cartridge with a can of helium from the party store.
I have no idea, but I would imagine it's not. There's no way it's not undoable. It's just figuring out the engineering. That's not a bad idea.
The good news is apparently our helium shortage is about to be over. Apparently in South Africa, they have hit a rare vein of helium, dude? I don't understand.
Vein of helium.
I don't understand what we're doing here. So is there like helium deposits underground and they hit it like oil? What is this about? I just saw the story and we were going to talk about it this morning and then we didn't. And so since you were talking about helium, I kind of started scanning through it. Okay, so apparently there is enough in this helium reserve. It could be as much as 9.74 billion cubic meters, larger than the known reserves in the entire United States. That's enough to fill about 1.4 trillion party balloons.
That's a lot.
And of course, this is all about the money that they're going to make. They don't frack to get this. They didn't frack. It's tore up now. There we go. So yeah, they've hit helium, everybody. It's all good. Have a party. Get your balloons. I'll share the story so you guys can dig in deeper. It's not worth spending time on.
Sounds like South Africa needs some freedom. We might need to go down there and give them good old-fashioned American freedom. Get us some helium for NASA.
Some helium.
Well, we always talk about kind of knowing when we're over the mark when the general public starts ridiculing things, and to the point that it becomes mainstream jokes. We definitely kind of feel, or I often do, that we're over a mark. Literally before the show, I was trying to capture some images from a little show I found this morning. It is called Inside Job. I'm trying to pull the pictures up. I can't find them. I know I saved them somewhere. Hang on. Oh, Telegram. That's where I put them. All right, give me a second.
You betcha.
There we go. Okay, let me put up this first thing. I guess this one. Silence it because I don't want to share the sound. I just want you guys to see this intro for the show real quick. All right, no sound, just showing it. So during the opening credits for the show, we see all these, secret things, and we get to see this. One side Earth, one side the moon, and then it flips away. I thought that was interesting that they put that in the opening of the show. And back it up just a hair if I can. Yeah. So yeah, one side of the Earth. Oops, too far. And the other side of the moon. So that's what it is. We're all on the same thing. Anyway, all right. So how do I stop this video now? Plug in here to get out of the app I'm in. There it is. All right, give me a second. I'll have to go find the pictures. Goodness gracious. It shouldn't be this difficult.
Ain't technology grand?
Okay, so the theme in this show is this little lady works at this company that is the deep state. They are behind everything. Joe from accounting runs the weather control system. They have ritual sacrifices for the blood sacrifices for the stock market. I mean, everything we talk about is in this show. This is a scene of her talking to her boss. And if you notice on her wall there's a little plaque. I mean, on his wall there's a little plaque with what appears to be a flat earth So I took a better shot of it. There you go. So that's in the show. And then a little bit later, she's at her dad's apartment. Dad is still a conspiracy nut. He has founded the company, blah, blah, blah. On the wall was, I thought, this really interesting picture. Just as she says, yeah, you got fired for attempting to blow up the sun, they cut to him and he's standing in front of this picture on the wall, in front of his lamp, interestingly enough. But yeah, it seems to be a dome.
You are not
with
showing, Walter.
multiple suns.
I'm not seeing.
You're not
Yeah,
seeing it?
there.
I didn't share?
No.
Well, I thought I hit share. I'm so sorry, everybody. All right. I'll try it again. Now are you seeing it?
There it is.
So did you see the flat earth?
Oh, that is definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Y'all should have shut me up a long time ago if you weren't seeing what I was saying. I apologize.
I thought you were still working
Yeah.
on getting it pulled up.
I had it up. I didn't know I'd stop sharing. Okay, so yeah, in the office, on the wall, in the plaque area there, we've got the owl, we've got the compass and the square, and we've got the fucking flat earth. There it is. I mean, what else can that be? Ice wall, the whole 9 yards. And then, as I said, at Dad's apartment, where he's talking about blowing up the sun, this is on the wall next to a lamp. A dome, multiple suns from some above area shining with all these different ways, and then there's these other things, and it's fucking dome, and I mean, what the hell? And then there's this weird swirly thing going on above it, like some kind of pattern in the sky, almost like the analemma. Just some fucking nut stuff on this show. It's called Inside Job. It's only the first episode, and already I found these 3 things. Go check it out. I don't get paid, but go break it up. Let's decode this thing. All right, I'll stop sharing.
That was a little nutty.
It's fucking nuts. Fucking nuts, without a doubt.
BCB in chat. That is Inside Job is the name of that show. I wonder where that name
Yes.
came from. Where in the vernacular you might hear that.
And I mean, you pick it. They've shown it in the first episode. The lizards, yeah, you pick it. It's there. It's great. Whoever put this together is either really behind some shit or really trying to break some people's balls. I'm not sure where they're going yet with this. Again, first episode, and it's nuts. So I can't wait. I'll probably be digging into that over the weekend.
Huh. So I remember when I went on the radio all those years ago, I wanted to take on some interesting little factoids that I'd found out. They had been gathered on, I think, redice.tv. I think that's where they still are. And just basically little things that different astronomers and people have said about the moon, about, it ringing like a bell and it being smaller than it should be and lighter than it should be and less dense than it should be. And for all intents and purposes, the moon that we see is like a visual anomaly and shouldn't even be there. And all these just weird little factoids. But that's because I was sort of trying to address the general public. The type of people that will listen to the funny guy on the talk radio station during the drive time in St. Louis, Missouri. Those type of people. So I didn't want to get too much into sort of trying to get them to conceptualize the spinning and the rotations and what it is, the dark side of the moon. And there's just a few things that's why I really liked your chapter in the book about the little factoids that you included about the moon, because you made them simple to understand, but they're a little more practical than sort of the nonsense that I had taken to the radio station from other astronomers. What I liked about yours was they were so basic and simple that it made it easy to understand, that you can really, it makes it easier to digest in these in small bites. And I was just
Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
no. I mean, there's no question. I was just commenting on how much I again enjoyed reading your book, especially the chapter that you included about some of the stuff about the moon, and just like, hey, here's your moon. This is what they're saying is going on here. What do you think is happening here? And I just appreciated that chapter.
You know, when a bright light shines on a surface, flat surface or spherical surface, you get what's called a hot spot. I was actually, when we first started, I was thinking, I got to do something about that hot spot behind me on the wall. It looks weird. Maybe it's going to mess up the lighting, but it's a good example. When a surface, spherical or flat, most any shape, is illuminated by a single light source, a radiating light source that's distant from it, it's going to have a hot spot, right? So if the sun illuminates the moon, where's the hot spot? It should be, well, it depends on where you are in relation to the moon and the sunlight, but it should be there. On a full moon, there just should be a hot spot. On a half moon, there should be a hot spot. It may be hard to see based on where you are, but on a full moon, there should always be a hot spot. So I got pictures of the moon, and I got a light shining on a sphere in the book, and no, I do have a light shining on a sphere. It's been a while. I forgot how I did it. It's the sun. Sun shining on a sphere, and there's a hot spot. Sun shining on the moon, which is allegedly getting all of its light from the sun and a sphere, and there's never a hot spot. I've never seen a photograph of the moon or the real moon with a hot spot on it, but there should be.
There should be. You should be able to track the sun's movement during the night based on how that hot spot travels across the moon.
Yeah, you'd be able to do the geometry and you'd be able to know where it is. But it's never there, which implies that the sun's light, if it's the source of the sun's light, if the sun is what's illuminating the moon, that it's a very small contributor, that there's some other contributor to the moon's light. Like, because it just doesn't behave optically like a sphere that is being shined on.
John, do you have a talking clock by chance?
You know what? There's no force on earth that can make that thing stop telling me what time it is. I've tried. My son's a computer programmer by trade. He can't make it stop. I just can't do it. It's just going to tell me what time it is till I die. Anyway.
That's all right. We've had some interesting conversations with interesting people, and we've picked up some interesting third-party sounds, and I just wanted to make sure that one was accounted for and not one of those unidentified third-party
Steve Jobs
sounds.
Still in my computer, and I can't make him stop telling me what time it is. But, yeah. The moon, you always see the same side of the moon, right? It always faces the Earth. I did some math in the book, and that's because it allegedly rotates around its axis in exactly the same amount of time it takes it to rotate around the Earth. Perfectly. So even if there was a difference of one, I have the math in my book, which isn't in front of me, but if there was a difference of like 1 minute, like it rotated and finished its month-long orbit 1 minute before it rotated around its axis, back in the Middle Ages, we'd be able to see the other side of it. But it's so well in sync that through all of recorded human history, we've only seen one side, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
And the secular astronomers, the establishment's astronomers will say, oh, that's tidal locking. That happens when something rotates something else. Okay, so why isn't the Earth tidal locked around the sun? Hasn't the Earth been rotating around the sun longer? The sun has a fluid-like element to it. It's made out of plasma. So if you blame the oceans on the Earth for tidal locking the moon, why haven't we tidal locked around the sun? We have one hot side of the world and one cold side that's always frozen solid. Or the other planets, well, are they tidal locked? No. Are any of them? They're definitely not all tidal locked. So the argument doesn't really work that there's some magical tidal locking thing. And even if that was the case, you can't really establish it because no one was there to take the observations before it was tidal locked and saw it happen. That's just a really weird coincidence that we always see the same side of the moon. And the thing I spent the most time on was the eclipse. allegedly the Earth's shadow moves across the moon during an eclipse. Well, it doesn't work optically for a circular shadow, because the sphere is going to have a circular shadow, right? Because you lose the third dimension. The arc of the shadow is constant from beginning to middle of the moon to the end of the moon. But if it's really a shadow of a constant arc, if the Earth's not changing shape, moving across the moon, and the moon is a sphere, that arc's going to change. So same sphere I had out there, I had a constant arc, didn't change shape, same distance. Took pictures of it at different stages from the same distance from the sphere, and then you can see how I illustrate it in the illustration, that the arc, the degrees of curvature of the arc change as it moves across the surface of a real sphere. And it doesn't do that across the moon during an eclipse, which is another indicator that the moon isn't a sphere. I don't know what the moon is. I don't claim to know what it is, but optically it does not behave like.
Doesn't seem to be a sphere, though.
What's up?
I said it doesn't seem to be a sphere.
It doesn't behave like a sphere. I haven't been close to the moon. I haven't gotten to get up, touch it, and take pictures from 10 feet away. But from what we can tell from here, it doesn't behave like a sphere.
Have you seen the experiments where someone takes two spheres and they try to make the eclipse happen, and what they wind up with looks sort of like the Pepsi logo? It's kind of a circular SE thing across the second sphere. It's not a arc. I'll have to find it. Zach could show us exactly where it's at, because he talks about that a lot, but I'm not sure where it is anymore.
Gotcha.
Go ahead. I thought that's what you had brought up, Josh. That's why I know what this one is.
The red arc there is the same arc, copied and pasted onto each shadow. It fits one of them really well. It doesn't fit the others, even though the circular object casting the shadow is the same distance away. It's just casting it on a different part of the sphere. Because the shadow is falling on a three-dimensionally curved surface, the arc's going to change. But we don't see that on the pictures of the moon. I think they're above there that I borrowed from NASA's own website. Okay, it's below. See how the arc pretty much fits upper left there in the beginning, and it fits in the middle, and it fits as the Earth's shadow obscures the moon as it moves to the right. So that is not consistent with the moon being a sphere. I don't know what it is, but that is a piece of the puzzle that is not in favor of the moon being a sphere.
I like it. I like it.
And I'm having absolutely no luck finding the video I'm looking for. If anyone in chat can remember the channel that did that experiment, showed that effect, please send it to me. So,
I think I've seen it before as well. It was, I think I've seen it.
It's been a long time ago. It was like some of the early day stuff, so that's why I'm having trouble. Any of that early stuff's buried so deep behind Uncle Al right now, you can't find it.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff on YouTube's gone too. It gets taken down pretty quick. I think I first noticed the censorship with some of the flat Earth alternate cosmology stuff first started disappearing. A lot of stuff censored now, but I think that was the first topic that got hit that I noticed.
Underground in chat says Earth should have a parashadow, right? According to O'Neill. That's one that I'm still. If you're a fucking normal person and you spin some pizza dough, it fucking goes straight out. It doesn't get a little chunkier at the bottom. What the fuck? So nobody's helping me there. They can't find it. Anyway, it looks like someone does have a question. Or not a question, but just a comment about the moon. It looks as though the craters look like light reflects off of them, and then dark spots. So weird. What do you make of the nipple in the craters? I know what they're talking about. Those little, inside of a crater, you'll see like a little, almost like a tiny little pyramid or a cone. Sometimes.
Yeah. I got to back up to answer that question. At least my answer, my take on it is why are we calling them craters? They're
Again,
circular
thank you.
structures.
Just
A crater.
what we've been told they are. Right.
They are circular structures, but crater implies a specific formation to them. And
Yep.
to my knowledge, I don't think anyone's ever observed anything like a crater forming on the moon. I'm not a history buff, but I think I don't think there's any astronomer ever that has looked at the moon and even thousands of years ago, and so there's less craters on it than what we see today. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. And look at me, I'm calling them craters, right? There's the bias. These circular structures. I don't know if they're craters. I don't know what they came from, but they are circular structures. And to address the person's question directly is, I don't know. I don't know what they are. I think it's presumptuous to call them craters like I just did, but yeah, I don't know what they are. I get that there's shadows on them. It appears to have some texture to its surface. It's odd that I think they're all perfect circles. You know, I would think a planetoid in space without an atmosphere, if it was hit by meteors, they would generally not strike it at perpendicular angles always, especially facing the Earth. I mean, is it coming from the Earth or like skimming so close to the Earth that it knocks someone's chimney over on the way to the moon? How does that happen? I mean, how are there craters in the center of the moon when the same side always faces the Earth?
It would have to be a direct impact every single time, like dead center, boom. And then as soon as it rotates somewhere else, another one would have to hit, boom, dead center, exactly. And every time, every impact would have to be a dead center impact to the moon. Otherwise, there'd be glancing blows. It'd be coming in at an angle.
Yeah, there's no atmosphere to slow down the horizontal motion. So it would be exceedingly rare for there to be a perfect circle impact on the moon, especially on the Earth's side. I mean, what is it? Is it volcanic eruptions shooting cannonballs at it? I mean, there's no logic to it. It doesn't make sense that they would.
Unless the moon's plasma, and those are some type of electromagnetic phenomena.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the moon was something completely different from what we're taught, not even an object, a physical object.
There's even a theory I saw recently about it being a photographic effect on the inside of the dome of what we're actually existing upon. Yeah, that was in the EWAR, I think. Was that where I saw that? Secret History of Flat Earth. I think that's where or it may have been the first one. I'll see it and find it and give it to you. Hold on. It's really intriguing.
Yeah, I'd take a look.
When they start lining up flight paths on it and you go, whoa, shit, okay, hang on. What's going on here? So I'll find it. One moment.
Okay. Interesting.
While I'm digging for that, though, as I had said right when I got into the, I think I went to the wrong. I'm looking at. Oh, I bet you and me are scrolling in the same link, Josh. That's what's going on. Let me find it. Hold on.
Sorry, we'll just sit here in dead silence.
I had highlighted it. I know it's still highlighted if I go through here. Okay, the Egyptians and the frickin' like ceiling art in Cinnamut. Is that his name? In Cinnamut's tomb. Dude, that broke my brain because I've looked into a lot of the Egyptian stuff over the years back in my UFO days. So that they had recorded in such detail the exact makeup of the sky 3,500, well, again, this is what we're told, 3,500 years ago, and it would have been 16 trillion miles away from our current location in space, but the shit is exactly what we currently see in our sky today.
You're pulling that out of my book.
Yeah, that's what I had highlighted. That's what
I thought you were looking up. I thought you were looking up something on the internet. I was like, that's
yeah. Although I gave up trying to find the old video. Yeah, no, I was saying when I went to your book to find this, Josh had scrolled it to the.
Yes.
It's why we're doing that.
Ancient Egyptian is pretty.
That has broken my brain for sure, man. That's amazing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it doesn't change, and we've gone a long way from them, and we've got stars that are close and stars that are far away, and there's no parallax. The constellations they found are all still there. Not one of them is scrambled. So, yeah, that's a tough one to explain away if we're spinning around and going as fast as we're going.
I'll see if I can't share that with the folks there on YouTube.
Yeah, go for it.
It's just so.
And unfortunately,
detailed.
that's kind of where I was. I haven't actually gotten to. I think you said you talk about satellites there towards the end. Is that what?
Yeah,
I'm
last chapter, I feel a need to address NASA because NASA says is a common rebuttal people throw around. Deferral to alleged expertise and authority. So I talk about the satellites and ISS video feed for a while.
Right, the good stuff.
Project where I would try to watch the ISS video feed. So there's a big infrastructure project right now on Oahu to put in a rail system along the whole southern coast of the island. And my attempt was to compare alleged real-time International Space Station video feed with the actual real status of the project. So I was like watching it go over, capturing images, trying to capture images. Then I was going to go drive to the infrastructure project and say, look, they're showing you old footage because there's another half mile of this rail project completed. But and feel free to put it on the screen if you can find it. I captured I had the ISS GPS over Hawaii, as you can track it real time, allegedly. But the video feed showed me a place. This happened a couple times. A completely different landscape, shorelines I couldn't recognize. It was brown instead of green. Hawaii's mostly green, not all green. And I spent a lot of time looking around maps, and it turns out it was Sicily. It was over the Mediterranean. But the screenshot I have shows, there it is. Yeah. That's it.
Is that it? Okay, I thought that was it.
We got I don't know if you can see the GPS on the smaller picture in the center. That's the best screen capture I could get because you only have like a second to do it. My buddy, actually, James Porcher, was helping me do this. He was on one video feed, I was on another, and we were taking screenshots as it flew over Hawaii. The smaller picture in the middle, bottom middle, shows the space station over Hawaii. The GPS coordinates are correct over Hawaii, but that's the live video feed. And that's the Mediterranean. The island that right now is on the big picture with a little spike pointing off to mainland Italy, that's Sicily. I've lived in Hawaii a long time, and we got a lot of cool islands, but Sicily isn't one of them. That's I don't know how you can have a mistake that bad. There were a lot of pictures that were really wrong. A lot of places I couldn't recognize at all when it flew over Hawaii. When it flies over the mainland, I think they do a better job there. Maybe they know they're going to get fact checked there better, and they probably wouldn't screw this up this bad anymore. I bet they've, you know how their CGI gets better over the years. But yeah, I've seen it precede the ISIS video go into areas where on the video it gets dark, but it's not dark there yet. Things like that. I know a lot of people have found clouds. ISIS shows cloud cover that's not really there when it flies over their house. So
my first few months of Flat Earth were hanging out with Bob and Jaron and JT on Globebusters as they watched hours of ISS live feeds, and it was such a joke. I mean, literally 2 cameras 50 feet apart. It's daylight on this one and complete dark on this one. Or you see the camera's background behind and there's people. I mean, there's just so many mistakes, so many freaking, here comes the sun, oh, the camera goes off. It was just a joke every time we would sit and watch that shit. Bob, in chat, what's up, brother? I see. And it was TJ. Thank you, Bob. I knew you would know.
Yeah,
I'm old school, Bob. I'm old school.
you know, if you believe that's real and you turn it on and you look at it for 3 minutes, you're not going to catch the problems with the ISS video. But if you really don't necessarily believe it and you want to watch it with the intent of seeing if it's actually real, and you do real world comparisons, which almost no one does, then you're going to see that it's got a lot of problems with it. Sun goes down too early. I mean, come on, we're in the wrong continent here. I've watched it over the mainland and it seemed about right. Well, what I was seeing could have been the right coastline as it crosses over the west coast, but in Hawaii, that was crazy talk. It was like seeing parts of Africa and then Sicily. I mean, I don't know how they even begin to try to sell that. Wouldn't they take it down? Is there someone on the inside that wants the truth to get out, so they mess it up on purpose?
It's your word against ours. Who do you think they're going to believe?
It kind of is a great question, though, John. I mean, we all are here for the very simple fact, or I think at least 80 to 90% of us are here for the simple fact that fucking YouTube fed it to it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, like I told you guys in the beginning, it took me a while. I had to have a lot of stuff thrown at me and had to study it a lot of my own. I tried to prove it wrong as well, but yeah, I mean, if you're objective about it, it's not escapable. Did we lose somebody?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Unless we lost Walter, or did he just freeze up like I like to do? Nope, I guess he actually was frozen.
Okay. Too bad.
I suspect he'll be back.
All right. Cool.
Shout out to Trinity for Africa. Haven't seen you in a minute, Dave. Hope all is well. It's just a nice Friday night. Usually I'm a lot more exhausted by this point than I am now.
The coffee works, right? It's a good
That's
size
right.
cup. You got your quart right there.
Yeah, that's probably not far from what it is, about a quart.
Yeah.
But I'm down. I used to be like 2 pots a day, using just the largest cup I could find and just filling it with coffee and drinking it as fast as I could.
Yeah, I know. I got to cut down too. I have been a little bit.
Then I was introduced to atrial fibrillation. And Doc says, hey, maybe you should cut down on the coffee. I says, probably couldn't hurt.
Really?
So,
Yeah, that would change me too. I'd be looking to change my coffee habits too if I went that far.
So how long have you been out of the Navy?
I was in for 21 years, 4 years regular active duty, total of 10 years active duty because I was a reservist most of the time. Yeah, I got deployed a couple times after I left regular Navy, but yeah, it's been cool. Brought us to Hawaii. Yeah, it's very glad I did it. I like, I'm supposed to get a retirement someday, but I think that's crazy talk because the way the government prints money, I don't think anybody's getting anything meaningful.
Nope.
But it was a good experience. Glad I did it.
Well, maybe it just depends on whether or not you're vaccinated.
What?
Said maybe it just depends on whether or not you're vaccinated as to whether or not you actually get your retirement.
It probably will. Yeah, we got those vaccine passports out here on this island, and yeah, it's interesting. When I was a kid, I'm really grateful my mom did this. She took me to visit our relatives that were trapped behind the Iron Curtain. I got to go see East Germany and Yugoslavia and learn about life back there. Really great lessons.
I bet. I bet you learned a lot.
Yeah, it was. It was really interesting. You grow up hearing all the stories about Uncle so-and-so in the Soviet Union told him he couldn't say that or whatever they were, And then kids learn stuff and then forget it, put it in the back of your head. And my mom comes out to Hawaii several months back. She gets off the plane and greeted by all these armed soldiers and make sure she checks in with the COVID police. And she's like, wow, I haven't been to an airport like that since I flew into communist East Germany. And you know what? I'm in a papers, please society, like the one I got to visit to see my relatives in the Soviet bloc countries. This is crazy that this has happened so fast. So yeah, all the familiarity, that sense of oppression I felt when we went from West Germany to East Germany, just going in there, just that sense of oppression, that's here now. And that's so weird to me to be experiencing this.
And it's funny to hear him claiming this whole defund the police movement, that they're going to somehow sort of take away some of the fangs from law enforcement. That's the attention span of people. I spent 8 years, early days, early Obama is about the time I found Alex Jones.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the stuff that I was posting on Facebook, especially in regards to the police state and the militarization of the police everywhere in the U.S.
I know.
Getting MRAPs and just the special weapons and tactics and all of the different gear that was not civilian police feeling. It was all very military. It's all flak jackets and tactical, not approachable is what this is. This is very assault-like. This is in no way protection and service type of gear that they were issuing for 8 years under that Dem Barry Soetoro. Nobody said a word except that nutbag fucking, what's his name?
I don't know yet.
Well, there were two of them. One was talk radio guys.
You're talking media guys.
Yeah. One was Alex Jones.
Okay.
And the other one was more mainstream. I forget exactly what his name. Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck and Alex Jones were both just pounding away at Obama and the stuff that he was doing. And that's sort of when I was sort of really getting momentum, because it was under George Bush that I started waking up and paying attention to politics. And then it took me about that long to realize it's all shit and to start putting some of these pieces together, and just jumped on Alex Jones and was thirsty for that information until I saw him for what he was and just the fear porn that he put out.
Yeah, I hear you.
But the MRAPs, the militarization of the police was absolutely undeniable.
No. That's not the way it was supposed to be. Yeah, not supposed to be that way. For me, the political wake-up was Ron Paul. Just the way he presented things caused me to look into the Federal Reserve, things like that. It was very, very eye-opening for me. Am I supposed to? There, I just admitted something.
I thought I'd admitted him. Maybe I denied him? I don't know. That was weird. Could have sworn I said accept, but then he never popped up.
Weird. Okay.
Whatever. Just making sure he has the power. This has been an excellent discussion. Thanks for coming to hang out with us.
Thanks for having me, for real.
Anytime. I really would like to have you back on. I would like to get some people that can maybe challenge you a little more.
That's all right. Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, the stuff I stick to in the book is simple to the point where it's very, very hard to dispute. But there's a lot of other stuff that is highly debatable because we just don't have enough information to get to certainty, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I that's where I live. Most of my time I spend there, just not enough information. I can give you lots of information, but there's still not going to be enough to make any sort of real determination.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just preponderance of evidence, maybe, but certainty, no.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get there on a lot of stuff. The sunset we talked about earlier, that was a hang-up for me for a long time. Like, how does the sunset work? It just was a hang up. I was like, I could go from geocentric motionless Earth. That wasn't that tough because of the gyroscope and the SAGNAC and the optical experiments, but actually from spherical Earth that doesn't move to flat, the sunset was a roadblock for me for a long time. Living in Hawaii, you can see a lot of sunsets. It seemed to fit the observations well until I saw, oh, it's an atmospheric thing. Okay, so that's where I'm at with that. Not 100%. I admit I could be wrong, but seems to fit the observations for me.
It's the way light works when it goes through a lens.
Yeah.
I mean, you can start to get a feel for it when you're dealing with fisheye lenses, or when you're watching that spherical shadow move across the spherical surface, and the way that the light is going to change the way it moves and travels around, and the way it passes through that lens. And I think that once you start to realize that it's only going to resolve so far.
Yeah.
And when you have that distance to go, it's once it gets out of that resolution, where does something go? What does it turn into? Well, it just starts to disappear from the bottom up into where that horizon line is, and where that limit lies. It's nutty. It really is crazy to think about. But when you put into perspective this idea that sitting in Hawaii on the beach, the main story is that really you're just sitting there rocketing backwards at near 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, at this latitude,
away from the sun. As the Earth spins away, you're just flying, and you're just flying backwards away from the sun.
Yep.
And that idea, I think, is much harder to actually wrap your head around. When you present the two ideas, I don't care what model you propose is true. When presented with those two ideas, there's only one that makes a logical sense.
Unless they get you when you're a little kid, and they put that globe in the kindergarten, and the teacher shines a flashlight on it and spins it around and says, there's your day and night. That's how it works, little boys and girls. And you don't know any better, so you just believe it. By the time you're old enough to question, you don't do it because that would be crazy.
And, well, they don't put it into the perspective, into the terms of the sunset is just really you flying backwards, spinning backwards away from the sun over the speed of sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they would say, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. But that's what's happening. So you can't really connect those two in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing all right there, Walter? You having some connectivity issues? Is it raining again? Did it start storming?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Whoa.
That's something.
I didn't understand any of that. I heard a voice, but I couldn't make out anything.
He said he was gonna. That's all I heard.
Okay.
Hello.
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 A little robotic, but
Yeah, this is not working, guys. Apparently the cable crashed. I'm fine. I have power here, but my internet has gone off in the middle. That's what happened a while ago. Y'all started cracking up, and then it dropped, and I've been trying to get back on since. I've reset it twice. So I'm guessing the town where the internet provider exists is locked off. I don't know. I guess they got hit because it's not coming back up. I've reset it twice. I'll just sit here and listen quietly.
all right. Well, hell. Ain't that just a bear? Let's see, we're pushing 2 hours. We're not doing too bad. We're doing all
I
right.
just looked at the clock. Right.
Yeah, that wasn't working at all, Walter. I don't know. Just don't know. And I do like the fact that even after the conclusion, the very last thing in the book, before it gets to you and sort of your about the author section, is you included some scripture. And I like the juxtaposition of that scripture, sort of the very last thing, and the way it stands out against all the information that you just went through. And it's just sort of this culture shock when you go through and you read the chapters and you get through it, and then there at the bottom are all these seemingly out of place quotes of scripture. And I think it really does help put a nice little bow and help tie all of the, again, seemingly unrelated technical information above it and brings it all together and sort of brings it, maybe not even brings it together, it does the opposite, it blows it out. It takes all this very singular information and makes it so existential and just it can spin your mind off into so many ways. I just really liked the way you sort of ended it with just the scripture. I thought that was really, really neat in so many different reasons. So kudos
Thanks.
to that too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, the book that goes through the Bible and explains that the earth can't be moving or that it's not shaped the way we're told it's shaped has been written probably 30 times. So I definitely didn't want to write a book that I can't add any value to the discussion. So, I wrote that one, like I said, it's a bunch of objective experiments anyone can repeat on their own. But just to throw it in there, there's a lot of people that will never touch this stuff. They'd say it's crazy, but if they're Bible believers, that puts another layer on it. And the book's not a flat earth book. I don't argue for the earth being flat in the book. I argue that the current cosmology is wrong. And then I want to back it up with something that still a significant percentage of the westernized population believes, or at least says they believe, because, there is another approach. I just don't want to take it in that book because it's already done. So, yeah, I thought it was really worth throwing in there because, like you said, it adds another element to all the arguments. And those aren't flat earth Bible verses. They're the earth isn't spinning around Bible verses, So it alludes to the fact that there's another angle out there on this. It's not all objective, even though the objective case is overwhelming.
And it is almost, again, like a line in the sand. Say, look, you either believe this mainstream narrative that you've been taught your whole life, or you believe the Bible. And when you're talking to the Bible believers, that's a pretty hard, fast line. It really it pushes them right into a corner that says, all right, well, which one do I choose? This ridiculous story that I just read, and I say, that's what I believe? Because that makes me feel really stupid. Or do I say, nope, I believe the Bible that tells me it's flat and motionless. At the very least, motionless.
Yeah.
Which goes against everything I've ever been taught. Now I feel stupid. So it really does make them have to come to terms with some things about themselves in a very roundabout way.
Yeah, I get you. And a totally secular person is probably not going to care what the Bible says. But, I think there's a portion of the population, broadly defined, that the word Christian is a really, really broad term. But so it probably encompasses a decent percentage of the population one way or another. And they're going to give some credibility to that and say, oh, look at this religion I grew up in 20 years ago is consistent with what this book's telling me that I just read. There's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's language in the Bible, I couldn't tell you where, somewhere in the New Testament, that says to have true wisdom, I think it's the wisdom of God. I'm not going to be able to quote it, but to have true wisdom, you have to become a fool in the world's eyes. The world's going to think you're a fool if you find true wisdom. Don't quote me on that. I think I got the concept right, but the words are way off.
Yeah, no, I'm totally right there with you. I'm not sure I could quote it any better, so we'll just run with yours.
All right. And unless and until this becomes mainstream, which is probably a ways off, people that believe what we believe about this are just going to look pretty dumb. I was hesitant to come out and talk about this, or I would say be perceived as unintelligent. And I've been hesitant to come out and talk about this, but I think it's worth doing. It's important. And if someone does give me a hard time about it, say, hey, well, that's dumb. We can't have a dumb guy working for us. Stop in my book and say, okay, well, show me where I went wrong.
Right.
Get back to me with where I went wrong.
Yeah. Again, at my work, I'm sure there's several people that would have a really hard time accepting this information, even though so much of what we do is line of sight for the military.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, you can see. You can see. How can you see? How could you see?
They got
But
radar systems that can see things that you can't see. I said you work on. You said you work on tanks. I doubt you're touching rail guns. I don't think they're. I'm not in the army. I don't think they're putting those on tanks yet. But
No.
I'm about 20 feet above the surface of the water, and I have a line of sight to something 80, 100 miles out there that's 20 feet above the water. That's a little bit of a problem, you know? There's no, oh, the weather, the sun bent the light, the humidity layer over the water bent. You're not talking about light. You're talking about a piece of steel. It didn't bend a piece of steel doing 1,000 miles an hour, however fast a railgun projectile goes. But yeah, you know, a lot of the stuff, radar, surface to surface radar, the stuff doesn't work. It just doesn't work if you can hide behind the curve.
That's it. And I think we're going to get out of here. Otherwise, we're going to drive poor Walter crazy, spending the rest of his night trying to log on.
Yeah, I hear you. That's fine. I'm good with that. I got family as well.
And I would really, really like to get you on sometime when we can have some more people kind of talk to you. Gyroscopes. I'd love to get John on here to talk gyroscopes. I'd love to get Bob on here to talk gyroscopes. Because I imagine when you're trying to interact with people online about gyroscopes, I can't imagine you've not heard Bob Nodell's name come up once or twice.
Oh yeah, I was on his show, I don't know, 8 months ago, something like that. Great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah. And all the ballers claiming that he's proven the motion of the Earth.
I watched the video. Interesting stuff. I think you have to get into the aether and all that, and the aether wind that Einstein was looks a lot like he was hired to make that go away. Come up with a theory that kills the aether because we can't. It doesn't work. We'll have to tear up all our degrees and go get jobs flipping burgers if this doesn't go away. But yeah, interesting stuff. I think it's totally cool how some of the guys in that show have been able to reduce the weight of objects, not the mass, the weight, as in the effect of gravity on an object. I mean, if you're doing that, you're onto something.
Uh-huh.
And it's not Einstein's kind of gravity. It's not Einsteinism gravity. It's they call it I studied a lot of physics in college. I didn't go deep into this area, so I don't know a lot about it, but they call it an incoherent dielectric acceleration, which is based on a different charge between the firmament and the Earth, which is crazy interesting.
It is.
Figure out.
It is.
They've got evidence. They've got experimental evidence that theory is correct.
This is why you've got to come back on. This is why you just have to come back on again, John. That's all there is to it. We get Zach on
I'm not an
here.
expert in that. I'd love to come back on, but if you grill me about that, I'm not an expert in that. I only know superficial stuff I've seen. If I had to,
I'm not sure what the hell that was, Walt, but it was not intelligible. It was less than.
I give up. I'm over it.
That's all right. We love you. And I said the same thing. I'm going to wrap it up here just so you don't feel compelled to keep trying, because I know you will. That way, I just wanted to make sure I could at least guilt John into coming back for one reason or another, because we're not going to grill you on anything. We would love to sit down and have a conversation about incoherent dielectric acceleration in regards to the things that Zach has done and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think we'd just have an even better conversation with a few more minds involved.
I'm good with it. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, man.
Well, tell your family thank you for sharing you this evening. We really do appreciate it. You go get to them, enjoy the rest of your Friday night, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Cool, man. Yeah, great talking with you.
You too, John. Thanks again so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you too.
All right, I'll be in touch. I'll make sure you come back on. This has been an awesome conversation.
All right, cool. Catch you later.
All right, thanks a lot. Oh, man, that was so interesting. Let me see. Let me blow this up so we can just get everybody to read it a little better. There we go. Your science teacher is wrong. And how you can prove it. John Reed, everybody. Thank you so much, John, for coming out. Walter, just relax. Sit back, pet the kitties, play with the cats, whatever it is you got to do. It'd be fine. Oh, geez, well, I do appreciate the placement. I might put it elsewhere. There we go. We'll try that. That's a little better. Pet the kitties, play with the cats. Oh, look, here you are. I'll just move it back again. This is fun. I like this because OBS is working so well for me that I can just do it on the fly. There we go. And Zach, Cammy, Bob, Frick, every dang flat earther out there for Flattoberfest. We love you. Wish we could be there. Here's a great big virtual hug. Heart to heart. Spirit to spirit. Energy to energy. We love you. Make the most of it. Wish we could be there with you. Because damn, I bet it is a blast. So we got your face for just a second, Walter. We'll just call that good. Oh, come on. Wake up. There we go. Let's see. I think that's... I heard a noise. I saw some movement. I think that was a salute, a finger, a stay flat, something. Not quite sure what that was. So we say goodbye to John, say goodbye to Walter, say goodbye to Zach. Is there anybody else?
And Lucas.
Oh, right. And Lucas. Lucas, who is busy this evening, had to make some other plans. We missed you, brother. Hope things are well, and we will talk to you bright and early. No, scratch that. Reasonable time on Tuesday evening for you. It'll be bright and early for Walter and I and Zach. But it'll be a reasonable time for a Tuesday for you. Anyway, you relax. Have a good weekend. Tell the wife and kids we said hello. And thank them for all the time that they share you with us. And again, everybody, we do appreciate your support, even if it is just a subscription, hitting that like button, and ringing that little bell notification. Not everybody can sponsor the show, though we do have a few patron saint sponsors over there on Patreon. And I think I might spend this weekend doing up maybe a credit scroll, some sort of, maybe like a Law and Order end scene credits where we can just put all of the production credits for our patrons there on Patreon. Because we do appreciate that too. Because if you can't do it financially, that's what the subscription and the like and the bell are for. Anyway, guys, I want to get out of here. That was a great conversation. Mr. John Reed, author of Your Science Teacher is Wrong and How You Can Prove It, right here on the Ironworks. Nope, this is Have No Sphere. Ironworks was this morning. This is the trouble with having 18-hour days on Fridays. Last day of the week, and I just got to push it right to the max. Mr. John Reed, author of Your Science Teacher is Wrong and How You Can Prove It, right here on Have No Sphere on the Iron Realm Media YouTube channel. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your weekend. Toodles. Love you, Lucas.